I never believed in ghosts, until one traumatized my greedy aunt and saved my family's legacy. When Grandpa Joe passed, he left behind a massive, creaky log cabin buried deep in the Adirondacks. It was stuffed with vintage fishing gear, antique decoys, and rare handmade wooden boats. Dad, stuck in Florida with a broken ankle, called me in a panic and told me to drive up, change the locks, and guard the place. Why? Because of Aunt Linda. If you don't have an Aunt Linda in your family, count your blessings. She mentally appraises your furniture while eating your food. Before Grandpa's obituary even ran, she was already asking who was getting the antique canoe. Dad knew that if the cabin sat empty for even a week, she'd show up with a moving truck and strip it down to the floorboards. So I packed a bag, grabbed coffee, and drove 6 hours into the woods. When I pulled up, the isolation hit me like a truck. No cell service, just towering pines and a silence so heavy it felt alive. I loved Grandpa, but his cabin genuinely terrified me. The wind made the roof groan, and the floorboards creaked exactly like footsteps. I dragged my bags in, deadbolted the door, and passed out on the sofa. The next morning, something felt off. I walked into the kitchen and found a cabinet door standing wide open. I distinctly remembered shutting it the night before. I blamed exhaustion and moved on. But that night, around 11, it got weirder. I was in bed when I heard the unmistakable click of Grandpa's old radio switching on in the living room, just static, hissing softly in the dark. I froze, grabbed a flashlight, crept out, and shut it off. Nobody there. I told myself it was a power surge. My heart didn't believe me. By the third night, I was running on nerves alone, sleeping with one eye open. Around 2 in the morning, a heavy thud echoed from the mudroom. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my flashlight like a bat and crept down the stairs in the dark. I rounded the corner, and the beam landed on a figure crouched by the door. It was Aunt Linda. She had a master key, and she was stuffing Grandpa's rare, handcrafted bamboo fly rods into a garbage bag like she was robbing the place blind. Every ounce of fear I'd built up over 3 nights instantly turned into rage. He wasn't even buried yet, and she was already looting his house. I took a breath, ready to tear into her. But before I could get a word out, Linda went rigid. Her eyes locked on something behind me. Her jaw dropped. She let out a shriek that could have cracked glass, dropped the bag of $1,000 fly rods, and bolted straight out the front door into the freezing dark, screaming the whole way to her truck. My stomach hit the floor. Slowly, I turned around to see whatever horror was standing behind me. In the kitchen doorway, lit up by pale moonlight, stood a massive, towering man with a wild white beard, wearing a faded red flannel union suit and holding a plate of half-eaten blueberry muffins. I let out an embarrassing squeak. He glanced down at the muffins, then back at me, and gave a slow, apologetic wave. "Sorry to spook you, kid," he rumbled, voice like gravel. "Name's Barnaby. Live across the lake." The whole story came out. Grandpa had given him a spare key 5 years back. When he got sick, he'd asked Barnaby to check the pipes and keep the mice out of the pantry. Barnaby had been sneaking in late at night, trying not to wake me, just to eat the leftover baking before it went stale. He was the one who left the cabinet open. He was the one who bumped the radio. Dad finally made it up 3 weeks later. And Aunt Linda? We haven't heard a single word from her since. Getting caught red-handed by what she was 100% convinced was a 7-foot mountain ghost apparently cured her of a lifetime of greed. Barnaby still comes by for muffins. He just knocks first now.